My boyfriend got his coworker pregnant while I was playing devoted girlfriend for 3 years, so I played the long game. Now she lost custody of his baby and he's serving 6 months. I spent the next morning at work trying to focus on spreadsheets while my phone buzzed constantly. Maya kept checking in. My mom left 3 voicemails about reconsidering my choices, and Diego's mother sent paragraph after paragraph about how I was destroying her son. I silenced everything and pulled up those screenshots again. Kira had posted them in a private Facebook group called Single Moms Winning 8 months ago, complete with laughing emojis about her insurance policy pregnancy plan. The posts were damning. She'd written about researching which coworker made the most money, how she'd timed everything with her ovulation app, and even bragged about keeping her ex as backup in case the paternity test went sideways. There were comments from other women calling her a genius, asking for tips. She'd responded with a whole strategy guide about picking targets and creating accidents. My stomach churned reading it, but I forwarded everything to my lawyer. By lunch, the rumor mill at my office was in full swing. Apparently someone from the restaurant had posted a video of the whole scene. My coworker Nicholas pulled me aside in the break room, concern written all over his face. He'd seen the video and wanted to make sure I was okay. I appreciated the support, but the pitying looks from everyone else made me want to crawl under my desk. That afternoon, HR called me in. Someone had made a complaint about my disruptive personal life affecting the workplace. They couldn't say who, but I had my suspicions when I saw Kira's best friend from accounting smirking at me in the hallway. I explained the situation, showed them the harassment documentation my lawyer had started building. They took notes, but basically told me to keep my personal drama out of the office. I left work early, sitting in my car in the parking garage trying not to cry. My phone rang, Mark's name lighting up the screen. My heart jumped, then sank when I remembered how things ended. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe accept. His voice was rough, tired. Farah hadn't slept well, kept asking when I was coming back. She'd made me a bracelet at school and refused to take it off her backpack. He didn't know what to tell her, neither did I. We sat in silence for a moment before he asked if I was safe. I told him about the lawyer, the screenshots. He exhaled sharply when I explained Kira's scheme. The next few days blurred together. I threw myself into work, trying to ignore the whispers. My direct supervisor pulled me aside to say she'd heard about the complaint, but knew my work was solid. Still, she suggested I lay low for a while. I bit my tongue and nodded, even though I wanted to scream that none of this was my fault. Diego's harassment escalated. He started showing up at my gym, always on the treadmill right behind mine. He'd park outside my apartment building, just sitting there for hours. I documented everything, took photos, saved texts. My lawyer said we were building a strong case, but the legal process moved at a snail's pace. Then Kira upped her game. She started calling my workplace, pretending to be clients with complaints about my performance. She created fake email accounts to send HR concerns about my professionalism. She even showed up at a company happy hour, loud and hammered, telling anyone who'd listen how I'd stolen Diego and ruined her baby's life. My supervisor had another talk with me. While she believed none of it was true, the disruptions were becoming a problem. She suggested I take some personal time to sort things out. It wasn't a request. I packed up my desk that afternoon, trying to ignore the satisfied smirk on Kira's friend's face. Maya came over that night with takeout and tissues. She was furious, ready to march down to Kira's apartment and give her a piece of her mind. I showed her the screenshots instead. Her eyes went wide as she read through Kira's calculated plan. We spent the evening strategizing how to use them. The next morning, I woke up to 57 notifications. Kira had tagged me in a series of Instagram posts, photos of her and the baby with captions about deadbeat dads and homewreckers. The comments were brutal. People I didn't even know were calling me horrible names, threatening me. I screenshotted everything and sent it to my lawyer. Mark texted while I was making coffee. Just checking in, he said. Farah had asked if she could call me. My hands shook as I typed back that I missed her too, but didn't want to confuse her more. He understood, but said she was confused anyway. She'd told her teacher I was her almost mom, and didn't understand why I'd disappeared. I spent the morning updating my resume, searching for new jobs. My savings would last a few months, but I needed income. Every application felt like admitting defeat, but I couldn't let Diego and Kira destroy my career completely. I'd worked too hard to get where I was. That afternoon, I decided to be proactive. I created my own social media post, professional and measured. I didn't name names, just stated that I was experiencing harassment and stalking, that false allegations were being made, and that I had legal representation handling it. I included some of the tamer screenshots of Diego's obsessive texts and Kira's harassment, careful not to show anything that could backfire legally. The response was immediate. Friends and colleagues reached out with support. Several people said they'd suspected something was off about the video from the restaurant. A few even offered to write character references if I needed them. It felt good to take back some control of the narrative. But Kira didn't back down. She posted a response video, crying about how I was trying to silence a single mother and painting herself as the victim. She claimed the screenshots were fake, that I was jealous of her baby, that I was the one harassing her. The baby was crying in the background the whole time, which just made her seem more sympathetic to people who didn't know better. Diego jumped on the bandwagon, posting about how I'd abandoned him in his time of need and was now trying to ruin an innocent woman and child. He conveniently left out the cheating, the stalking, the hammered appearances at my home. His mother shared his posts, adding her own commentary about my cruel heart. My lawyer called with an update. The restraining order paperwork was filed, but the court date was 3 weeks away. In the meantime, I should avoid any contact and keep documenting. She also suggested I might want to consider staying somewhere else for a while, just to be safe. The thought of being driven from my own home made me furious, but I knew she was right. Maya insisted I stay with her. Her couch wasn't comfortable, but it was better than looking over my shoulder constantly. We fell into a routine, her heading to work while I job searched and dealt with legal stuff. She'd come home to find me stress baking, her kitchen covered in flour and frustration. A week into staying with Maya, I got an unexpected call. My former supervisor's boss wanted to meet. The head of our department had been following the situation and wasn't happy about how it was handled. She'd reviewed my performance records, saw no issues, and wanted to discuss options. I agreed to meet, hope fluttering in my chest. The meeting went better than expected. She acknowledged that I'd been put in an impossible situation and that the company hadn't handled it well. While she couldn't override my supervisor's decision immediately, she could offer me a position in a different department, same level, same pay. It would be a fresh start away from Kira's friend and the gossip. I accepted immediately. I started the new position the following Monday. My new team was welcoming, professional, and blissfully unaware of the drama. I threw myself into learning new systems, meeting new clients, proving myself all over again. It felt good to focus on something other than the chaos in my personal life, but the legal battle was just beginning. The restraining order hearing was a circus. Diego showed up in a suit, looking polished and playing the heartbroken ex. Kira came with a baby, making sure everyone could see her struggling single mother act. Their lawyers painted me as vindictive, jealous, unstable. My lawyer presented the evidence methodically: the harassment, the stalking, the social media campaigns. The judge granted temporary restraining orders against both of them, but it felt hollow. They could still trash me online as long as they didn't contact me directly or come near me. The damage to my reputation was already done. I left the courthouse exhausted, wondering if it would ever really end. Mark called that night. He'd heard about the hearing through mutual friends. Farah was asking about me again, had made me a card at school. He wondered if maybe we could meet at a park. Let her give it to me. Just as friends, he emphasized, for Farah's sake. I agreed, even though I knew it would hurt. Seeing them at the park that weekend was bittersweet. Farah ran to me, throwing her arms around my waist. She'd grown in the weeks we'd been apart. The card she made had a drawing of the three of us, labeled "My Family" in purple crayon. I had to blink back tears as I thanked her. Mark and I talked while Farah played on the swings. He admitted he'd been too hasty, too scared. Seeing how Diego and Kira were acting made him realize I was a victim too. He missed me. Farah missed me. But he understood if I couldn't go through this again. I told him I missed them too, but needed time to get my life back together first. The walk back from the park felt endless. Farah held my hand tightly, chattering about her art project at school while Mark carried her backpack. Every few steps, she'd squeeze my fingers like she was checking I was still there. When we reached their car, she wrapped her arms around my legs and whispered, "Please don't disappear again." I promised to see her soon, though I wasn't sure how to keep that promise. Mark touched my shoulder briefly before buckling her into her car seat. His eyes held questions I couldn't answer yet. After they drove away, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel and trying to process everything. Maya was waiting with Chinese takeout when I got back to her apartment. She took one look at my face and poured wine instead of asking questions. We ate in comfortable silence until I finally told her about Farah's drawing. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, reminding me that healing wasn't linear. Monday morning brought new challenges. Kira had apparently spent the weekend networking because suddenly my LinkedIn was flooded with connection requests from people in my industry, all with mutual connections to her. I ignored them, but the damage was already spreading. A colleague from my previous department texted me privately, warning that Kira was telling everyone at industry meetups that I was unstable and unprofessional. My new supervisor, Alexandra, called me into her office that afternoon. Someone had sent an anonymous email to our department head about my history of workplace disruption. Alexandra showed me the email, which was clearly written by someone who knew details only Kira would know. She assured me she wasn't concerned, but suggested we document everything proactively. I spent the rest of the day creating a comprehensive file of all the harassment, including the screenshots from Kira's pregnancy planning posts. Alexandra reviewed everything and immediately forwarded it to HR and legal. She also connected me with the company's employee assistance program, though what I really needed was for Kira to stop her campaign. That evening, I discovered Kira had escalated further. She'd joined several professional groups I was part of on social media and was subtly poisoning the well. Her posts never mentioned me directly, but talked about women who destroy families and professionals who can't separate personal drama from work. The comments were supportive of her, and I recognized several names from my industry. I called my lawyer, who suggested we could pursue defamation charges, but warned it would be expensive and time-consuming. I had to weigh the cost against my dwindling savings. Maya offered to help financially, but I couldn't accept that. Instead, I decided to focus on rebuilding professionally and let Kira exhaust herself. Tuesday brought an unexpected ally. Nicholas from my old department reached out, asking to grab coffee. He'd been watching Kira's behavior and was disgusted. Apparently, she'd been using company time to manage her harassment campaign, and he'd documented several instances. He offered to speak to HR if needed. I nearly cried with relief at having someone else see the truth. The coffee meeting revealed more than I expected. Nicholas mentioned that Diego had been showing up at the office looking increasingly disheveled, trying to get information about me from former colleagues. Security had escorted him out twice. He also shared that Kira's friend in accounting was starting to distance herself, uncomfortable with how far things had gone. I threw myself into work, determined to prove my worth in the new department. My first major project presentation was scheduled for Friday, and I spent every evening perfecting it. Maya would find me at her kitchen table surrounded by papers, laptop open, completely absorbed. She'd bring me tea and remind me to eat, being the friend I desperately needed. Wednesday afternoon, Mark texted asking if we could talk. Farah had been having nightmares about me leaving again. She'd told her teacher that her bonus mom was gone because of mean people, and the school counselor was concerned. My heart broke reading his message. I agreed to a phone call that evening. Hearing Farah's voice on the phone destroyed me. She asked if the mean people were still bothering me, if that's why I couldn't come to dinner. Mark had tried to explain in age-appropriate terms, but she was too smart for vague answers. I promised her the mean people wouldn't keep me away forever, that I just needed to fix some grown-up problems first. After Farah went to bed, Mark stayed on the line. He admitted he'd been doing his own research on Diego and Kira. He'd found the video from the restaurant incident and was horrified he'd let them drive me away. He understood now that I was protecting his daughter as much as myself by staying away until things calmed down. Thursday morning, I woke up to find Kira had outdone herself. She'd created a fake professional website using my name with subtle misspellings, filled with unprofessional content and rants about workplace drama. It was sophisticated enough that casual searchers might mistake it for real. My lawyer added it to our growing file, but the damage to my online presence was immediate. I spent hours working with an IT friend of Maya's to get the site reported and taken down. We also worked on improving my legitimate online presence, creating a professional website and updating all my profiles. It felt like playing whack-a-mole with Kira's attacks, but I refused to let her win. The presentation on Friday went brilliantly. My new team was impressed, and Alexandra publicly praised my work. For a few hours, I felt like my old professional self again. That confidence lasted until I checked my phone at lunch and found dozens of messages. Kira had shown up at my old office building that morning, causing a scene about me, stealing her life. Security footage showed her screaming in the lobby, the baby crying in her stroller while she ranted about home wreckers and workplace harassment. She'd been escorted out and banned from the building, but not before several clients witnessed the display. My former supervisor texted that she was was grateful I'd moved apartments, as if this was somehow my fault. Diego had apparently been there too, though he'd stayed in the parking garage. Security found him passed out in his car, empty bottles on the passenger seat. The police were called, and he was arrested for public intoxication. His mother called me 17 times that afternoon, leaving increasingly unhinged voicemails about ruining her son's life. I forwarded everything to my lawyer and tried to focus on work, but concentration was impossible when my phone kept buzzing with updates. A former colleague sent me screenshots of Diego's latest social media spiral, where he was posting old photos of us with long, rambling captions about real love and second chances. That weekend, I made a decision. I couldn't keep living in fear, couldn't let them control my life. I asked Mark if we could meet again, this time without Farah. We needed to talk about us, about whether there was a future worth fighting for. He agreed immediately, suggesting a quiet coffee shop where we'd had one of our early dates. Seeing him without Farah felt different, more intense. We talked for 3 hours, laying everything out honestly. He admitted he'd panicked when things got chaotic, that his fear of disrupting Farah's life had made him reactionary, but watching how I'd handled everything since, with grace despite the harassment, had shown him my true character. I explained my plan to systematically rebuild my reputation, while letting Diego and Kira face the consequences of their actions. The restraining orders were just the beginning. I had evidence of Kira's fraud, Diego's stalking, and their coordinated harassment. My lawyer was building a solid case for both civil and criminal charges if needed. Mark reached across the table and took my hand. He wanted to try again, but differently this time. We'd be a team, protecting Farah together while dealing with the chaos. He'd already talked to a family lawyer about protecting his daughter from any fallout. We agreed to take things slowly, but the hope in his eyes matched mine. Monday brought unexpected vindication. Kira's scheme had unraveled spectacularly over the weekend. Her ex, the baby's actual father, had seen her social media posts and was furious about being erased from his child's life. He'd hired his own lawyer and was pursuing full custody, using her fraudulent behavior with Diego as evidence of unfitness. Even better, Diego's company had launched an investigation into his behavior. Between showing up hammered, harassing me at work events, and Kira's scene in the lobby, they'd had enough. He was placed on administrative leave pending review. His mother's calls to my phone finally stopped when my lawyer sent her a cease and desist letter. I felt the tide turning. My new department was thriving. My relationship with Mark was rebuilding on stronger foundations, and my harassers were facing real consequences. But I knew better than to let my guard down. Desperate people do desperate things, and both Diego and Kira were running out of options. Tuesday afternoon proved my caution right. Kira had pivoted to a new strategy, playing the victim to anyone who would listen. She started a crowdfunding campaign for legal fees to fight harassment, painting herself as a single mother being persecuted. The campaign included carefully edited screenshots and a sob story that conveniently omitted her pregnancy fraud. I watched the donations roll in with disgust. People who didn't know the full story were contributing to her campaign, believing they were helping a struggling mother. My lawyer assured me this would actually help our case, as fundraising based on false pretenses could add fraud charges to her growing list of legal troubles. Mark and I met with a family therapist that week to discuss the best way to reintegrate me into Farah's life. The therapist was experienced with blended families and custody issues, offering practical advice about maintaining stability while addressing Farah's attachment to me. We created a gradual plan that prioritized Farah's emotional security. The first step was a casual dinner at their house that Friday. Farah was ecstatic when Mark told her, immediately planning what she wanted to show me in her room. I arrived with her favorite dessert and a new book we could read together. The evening felt almost normal, like the chaos of recent weeks was just a bad dream. After Farah went to bed, Mark and I sat on the couch talking quietly. He showed me the security measures he'd installed, cameras at the doors, new locks, even a panic button connected to a security company. He wasn't taking chances with his daughter's safety. I appreciated his proactive approach, feeling safer knowing he took the threats seriously. Saturday morning shattered our brief peace. I woke up at Maya's to find my car had been vandalized overnight. Red spray paint spelled out ugly words across the windshield, the tires were slashed, and the side mirrors were smashed. Security footage from Maya's building showed a figure in a hoodie, but the face wasn't visible. The police took a report, but without clear identification, there wasn't much they could do. I had my suspicions about who was responsible, but suspicions weren't evidence. The damage would cost thousands to repair, money I couldn't really spare. Maya drove me to get a rental car, fuming the entire way about the injustice. My phone rang as we were leaving the rental agency. It was Alexandra, her voice tense. Someone had sent emails to all our major clients from an address similar to mine, containing unprofessional content and wild accusations about the company. It had traced the emails to a public computer at a library, but the damage was done. Several clients were demanding explanations. I spent the rest of the weekend in crisis management mode. Alexandra and I worked with the legal team to draft responses to clients, explaining the situation professionally without getting into personal details. Most clients were understanding once they learned about the identity theft and harassment, but a few remained skeptical. Sunday evening, I finally broke down. The constant attacks, the professional damage, the financial strain, it all hit at once. Maya held me while I sobbed on her couch, feeling like Kira and Diego would never stop until they'd completely destroyed my life. She reminded me that I'd survived worse and would survive this too. Mark called during my breakdown, somehow sensing I needed him. His voice was calm and steady as he reminded me of all the progress we'd made. The restraining orders were in place. Diego was facing professional consequences. Kira's fraud was being exposed, and most importantly, we were together. Farah had drawn another picture of us that day, labeling me as mom for the first time. That small detail gave me strength. A 7-year-old girl had chosen me as her mom, despite everything. I couldn't let Kira and Diego take that away. I wiped my tears and started planning my next moves. If they wanted a fight, I'd give them one, but on my terms. Monday's team meeting included a presentation about handling cyber harassment and protecting company assets from social engineering attacks. I'd worked with IT and legal over the weekend to create comprehensive guidelines. Alexandra was impressed enough to suggest presenting it company-wide, something positive from all this chaos. The presentation led to unexpected support from colleagues who'd experienced similar harassment. A woman from sales shared her story of an ex who'd tried to sabotage her career. A manager from IT talked about identity theft he'd faced. Suddenly, I wasn't alone in this fight. We formed an informal support group, sharing resources and strategies. That afternoon, my lawyer called with interesting news. Kira's ex had provided evidence for our case, mess, including text messages where she'd bragged about her plan to trap Diego financially. He was furious about being used as a backup plan and wanted to help expose her. His testimony would be crucial if we pursued criminal charges. Even better, Diego's company had completed their investigation. He'd been terminated for multiple policy violations, including misuse of company resources and creating a hostile work environment. His mother had called the company trying to intervene, which only made things worse. He was now unemployed with significant legal bills mounting. I felt a moment of sympathy before remembering the vandalized car and months of harassment. He'd made his choices, and now he was facing consequences. My focus needed to stay on rebuilding and protecting the life I was creating with Mark and Farah. Tuesday brought a breakthrough. The police had enhanced the security footage from Maya's building and identified distinguishing features on the vandal. A tattoo on the person's hand matched one Diego had gotten during our relationship. With this evidence, they could arrest him for vandalism and violation of the restraining order. The arrest happened Wednesday morning. Diego was taken into custody at his mother's house, where he'd been staying since losing his apartment. His mother called me one last time, screaming about ruining her baby boy's life before my lawyer's cease and desist finally convinced her to stop. I felt relief, but no satisfaction. This wasn't about revenge, just safety. Kira's reaction to Diego's arrest was predictable. She posted a lengthy rant about how I'd orchestrated everything to destroy them both. She claimed I was jealous of their love and the family they'd created. The fact that the baby wasn't even Diego's seemed lost on her. Her narrative was falling apart, but she clung to it desperately. Her ex used her posts as evidence in their custody hearing that week. The judge was not impressed with her behavior or her attempts to alienate him from his child. He was granted temporary primary custody, while she was ordered to undergo psychological evaluation and parenting classes. The baby would be safe while Kira dealt with the consequences of her actions. Thursday evening, I had dinner with Mark and Farah again. This time felt different, more settled. Farah showed me her school journal where she'd written about her family. There I was, listed as her mom alongside Mark as her dad. She'd even drawn pictures of us doing everyday things together, grocery shopping, reading bedtime stories, making breakfast. Mark and I exchanged looks over her head, both understanding the weight of that inclusion. After she went to bed, we talked about making things official, not rushing into anything, but acknowledging that we were building a family together. He suggested I start looking for apartments closer to them, somewhere Diego and Kira couldn't find me easily. Friday's work triumph felt especially sweet. The client who'd been most skeptical about the email situation called to apologize and praise how professionally we'd handled everything. They were increasing their contract with us, specifically requesting I manage their account. Alexandra was thrilled, joking that maybe all drama should come with silver linings like this. The weekend was blessedly quiet. I went apartment hunting with Mark while Farah stayed with a friend. We found a perfect place just 10 minutes from their house, in a secure building with good schools nearby. The implication wasn't lost on either of us. This was planning for a future together. Maya helped me move the following weekend. My possessions had been in storage since leaving my old apartment, and unpacking felt like reclaiming my life. Farah helped by decorating my new space with her artwork and insisting on picking out throw pillows. By Sunday evening, it actually felt like home. The first night in my new place, I sat on my couch with a glass of wine, finally feeling safe. The building had excellent security, my neighbors seemed friendly, and I was close to the people I loved. Diego was dealing with criminal charges, Kira was fighting for custody of her child, and I was free to build my life without their interference. Monday morning brought one last surprise. An email from a headhunter about a senior management position at a competitor company. They'd been following my work and were impressed with how I'd handled recent challenges. The position would be a significant step up, with a salary that would ease all my financial stress from the recent chaos. I showed the email to Alexandra, expecting her to be upset. Instead, she smiled and said she'd been planning to promote me anyway. The company had been watching how I'd handled everything and wanted to keep me. She offered me a senior management role in our department, with a salary matching the competitor's offer. I accepted immediately, grateful for a company that had stood by me through everything. The promotion was announced that afternoon, with colleagues congratulating me genuinely. Even people from my old department reached out with well wishes. It felt like professional vindication after months of attacks on my reputation. That evening, I celebrated with Mark and Farah at their favorite restaurant. Farah wore a special dress and insisted on making a toast with her apple juice. She stood up and announced to the whole restaurant that her mom got a big promotion. Several diners smiled and clapped, making her beam with pride. As we walked to the car after dinner, Farah between us holding both our hands, I realized how far we'd come. 6 months ago, my life had exploded when Diego's cheating was revealed. Now I had a new career trajectory, a loving partner who truly supported me, and a daughter who'd chosen me as her mom. The next few weeks settled into a pleasant routine. Work was challenging but rewarding in my new role. Evenings were often spent with Mark and Farah, helping with homework, making dinner together, being a family. Weekends included trips to the park, movie nights, and slowly merging our lives in meaningful ways. Diego's legal troubles mounted as more evidence emerged. His vandalism charge was just the beginning. The prosecutor was considering stalking charges based on the documented harassment. His lawyer was pushing for a plea deal, but Diego's ego kept getting in the way. His mother had finally stopped contacting me, possibly because she was too busy dealing with his legal fees. Kira's situation was equally dire. Her ex had been granted primary custody after the psychological evaluation revealed concerning behavior patterns. She was allowed supervised visits but had to complete extensive counseling before regaining unsupervised access. Her professional reputation was ruined, and she'd been quietly let go from her job. I heard updates through the legal grapevine, but tried not to dwell on their downfalls. My energy was better spent on positive things like planning Farah's upcoming birthday party and preparing for a major presentation to the board. Living well truly was the best response to those who tried to destroy me. 3 months into my new role, I was thriving. My team respected me, projects were succeeding, and upper management was taking notice. The harassment felt like a distant nightmare, though I maintained all security precautions. Trust would take time to fully rebuild, but I was getting there. Mark proposed on a quiet Sunday morning while Farah was at a sleepover. Nothing flashy or public, just the two of us in his kitchen making breakfast. He said he'd planned elaborate speeches but realized our love was in the quiet moments, the daily choice to be partners. I said yes immediately, both of us crying and laughing. We told Farah together when she came home. She shrieked with joy and immediately started planning the wedding, insisting on being both flower girl and ring bearer. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and we spent the afternoon looking at wedding magazines magazines while she pointed out increasingly elaborate options. The engagement brought unexpected closure to one chapter. My mother, who'd been silent since I'd stopped taking her calls months ago, reached out with a genuine apology. She'd heard about the engagement through family and realized how wrong she'd been about Diego. She wanted to make amends and be part of our lives if we'd let her. It took several conversations and clear boundaries, but we slowly rebuilt our relationship. She met Mark and Farah, immediately charmed by both. Watching her play grandmother to Farah helped heal old wounds. She even apologized for suggesting I should have been more attentive to Diego, acknowledging how victim-blaming that was. Wedding planning became a family affair. Farah had strong opinions about everything from flowers to cake flavors. Maya was my maid of honor, threatening to give an embarrassing speech about our post-breakup pranks on Diego. Mark's parents flew in from across the country, welcoming me warmly into their family. The ceremony was small but perfect, held in the park where Mark and I had reconnected after our separation. Farah stood between us as we exchanged vows, placing her small hand on ours when we exchanged rings. When the officiant pronounced us married, she cheered louder than anyone, proud to officially have the family she'd been drawing for months. The reception was joyful and drama-free. No unwanted guests, no surprise disruptions, just people who loved us celebrating our union. Farah gave a speech that had everyone in tears, talking about how she'd wished for a mom and got the best one possible. I couldn't have asked for a more perfect day. Our honeymoon was a family trip to Disney World, Farah's choice. Watching her experience the magic while wearing her "my parents just got married" button was better than any romantic getaway. We took hundreds of photos, ate too much sugar, and cemented our new family unit with pure joy. Returning to regular life as a married family felt natural. We'd already been living as a unit, but the official recognition mattered. Farah started introducing me simply as her mom. No qualifiers needed. The adoption paperwork was already in progress, making legal what our hearts already knew. Work continued to flourish. My team had just landed a major contract that would define our department's success for years. The presentation I'd given months earlier about handling harassment had been adapted into company-wide training. I was asked to speak at industry conferences about resilience and professional growth through adversity. The speaking engagements were particularly satisfying. I could help others facing similar situations while also rebuilding my professional reputation on my own terms. Every presentation chipped away at whatever damage Kira had tried to inflict on my career. Success really was the best response. 1 year after the restaurant incident that ended my relationship with Mark temporarily, we returned to the same place for our anniversary. This time, it was a celebration of how far we'd come. Farah joined us for the whole meal, not just dessert, officially part of our love story from beginning to end. As we sat there laughing over Farah's animated retelling of a school event, I marveled at the journey. The pain of Diego's betrayal had led to this beautiful family. The harassment from him and Kira had only made us stronger. Every challenge had pushed me toward this life I'd never dared dream of. Mark reached over and squeezed my hand while Farah chattered on. His eyes held the same wonder I felt. We'd both been broken by loss, him through death and me through betrayal. But we'd found each other and created something new and beautiful. Our family might not have started conventionally, but it was perfect for us. The waiter brought out a surprise dessert with a candle for our anniversary. Farah insisted on helping blow it out, making a wish for all of us. As she closed her eyes tight, face scrunched in concentration, I made my own wish. Not for anything new, just for the continued happiness we'd fought so hard to achieve. Walking out of that restaurant, Farah between us swinging our hands, I felt complete peace. The journey had been brutal at times, but it led to this moment. My career was soaring, my family was thriving, and the people who'd tried to destroy me were facing their own consequences. Life had a funny way of working out. 3 years later, I stood at the registration desk of a major industry conference, collecting my speaker badge. I was presenting on crisis management and professional resilience, a topic I'd become inadvertently expert in. The attendee list included some of the biggest names in our field, and I was proud to be among them. After checking in, I headed to the speaker's lounge to review my notes one final time. The presentation was polished, but I always like to center myself before speaking. I found a quiet corner and pulled out my materials, focusing on the message I wanted to convey about overcoming professional adversity. A familiar voice made me look up. There was Diego, wearing an ill-fitting conference volunteer shirt, setting up water bottles on the refreshment table. He looked older, worn down by the intervening years. His hands shook slightly as he arranged the bottles, and I noticed he kept glancing nervously around the room. Our eyes met across the lounge, his widened in recognition, then filled with something between shame and regret. He started to approach, then stopped, seeming to remember the permanent restraining order still in effect. Instead, he quickly finished his task and hurried out, shoulders hunched in defeat. I learned later from conference staff that he was working through a temp agency, taking whatever jobs he could get. The arrest record and termination from his previous company had made finding professional work impossible. He was living in a small apartment, working multiple part-time jobs to cover his bills and ongoing legal fees. The contrast with my own situation wasn't lost on me. I was keynoting at the conference he was working as hourly help. My company had just promoted me to vice president of strategic development. Mark and I had bought a larger house to accommodate our growing family, including the baby daughter we'd welcomed the year before. Farah, now 10, was thriving in school and had officially been mine through adoption for 2 years. She'd been the best big sister from day one, insisting on helping with everything from diaper changes to bedtime stories. Our family photos showed 4 smiling faces, complete and content in ways I'd never imagined possible. I delivered my presentation to a packed auditorium, sharing lessons learned from navigating professional crises while maintaining integrity. The audience was engaged, asking thoughtful questions about balancing personal challenges with career growth. Several people approached afterward to share their own stories and thank me for the practical advice. During the networking lunch, I overheard someone mention seeing Diego working the event. They wondered aloud how someone could fall so far so fast. I didn't contribute to the gossip, feeling no need to revisit that chapter. His choices had led him here, just as mine had led me to the podium. The conference ended with an awards ceremony where I received recognition for innovation in crisis management. Standing on that stage, accepting the award, I thought about the journey from that awful anniversary dinner to this moment. Every challenge had been a stepping stone, every setback a setup for something better. I flew home that evening to my real awards, Farah's hand-drawn congratulations mom banner, and our baby daughter's giggles, Mark's proud smile and warm embrace. Maya had come over to help with the celebration, bringing cake and embarrassing stories about our early post-Diego days. As we sat around the dinner table, Farah regaling us with stories from school while the baby babbled from her high chair, I felt profound gratitude. The life Diego and Kira had tried to destroy had been replaced by something infinitely better. Their harassment had pushed me to fight for what I deserved, professionally and personally. Mark raised his glass in a toast to my success, but I redirected it to our family. Every accomplishment meant more because I had them to share it with. Farah clinked her juice glass enthusiastically against ours, declaring this the best celebration ever, with the authority only a 10-year-old could muster. Later that night, after both girls were asleep, Mark and I sat on our deck looking at the stars. He asked if seeing Diego had been difficult. I considered the question honestly before answering. It had been surprising but not painful. Like seeing a character from a book I'd read long ago, familiar but no longer relevant to my story. We talked about the future, upcoming projects at work, Farah's school play, the baby's first steps, normal family planning that felt extraordinary in its ordinariness. The drama and chaos of those early years had given way to stable happiness. We'd earned this peace through perseverance and protecting what mattered most. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya, checking in after the conference. She'd never forgiven Diego and Kira for what they'd put me through, but she'd also watched me rise above it all. Her message was simple: proud of you, bestie. You showed them all what success looks like. I smiled at her text but didn't immediately respond. Instead, I leaned into Mark's warmth, listening to the quiet sounds of our neighborhood at night. Somewhere out there, Diego was probably heading to his next temporary job, and Kira was still fighting to rebuild her relationship with her child. Their lives had become cautionary tales while mine had become an inspiration, not through revenge or spite, but through choosing to build rather than destroy, to love rather than hate, to rise rather than sink to their level. The best revenge truly was a life well lived, and mine was extraordinary. As we headed inside to bed, I paused at the doorway to peek into the girls' rooms. Farah had fallen asleep with a book on her chest, always my little reader. The baby was peaceful in her crib, tiny fist curled near her face. These were my victories, my achievements that no award could match. Mark wrapped his arms around me from behind, whispering that he loved me. I turned in his embrace, seeing in his eyes the same contentment I felt. We'd built this life together, brick by brick, choice by choice. What had started as devastation had transformed into something beautiful beyond imagination. The conference success was satisfying, but this was what mattered. The home we'd created, the children we were raising, the love we'd chosen to nurture despite obstacles. Diego and Kira had inadvertently given me the push I needed to find my real family, my true calling, my authentic self. I fell asleep that night not thinking about the past, but dreaming about the future. Farah's upcoming science fair, the baby's first birthday party, my next big project at work, weekend trips and holiday traditions we were still creating. The life I was living was better than any I could have planned. The next morning brought the usual beautiful chaos of family life. Farah needed help with a school project. The baby needed everything babies need. Mark was making breakfast while dancing badly to morning radio. I moved through it all with practiced ease. Each moment a gift I no longer took for granted. My work email showed congratulations from colleagues who'd seen conference photos, new speaking invitations, and potential partnership opportunities. The professional recognition was gratifying, but it was the photo Mark sent mid-morning that made me smile widest. Farah reading to her sister during lunch, captioned, "Your girls miss you already." This was success. Not just the promotion or the speaking engagements or the industry recognition. Success was building a life so full of love that past pain became just a distant memory. It was choosing joy daily, protecting what mattered, and never letting anyone's attempts to diminish you define your worth. 3 years after that restaurant confrontation, I'd kept my promise to Farah. The mean people hadn't won. They'd tried to destroy my career, my reputation, my capacity for love. Instead, they'd inadvertently pushed me toward everything I was meant to have. Their cruelty had revealed my strength. Their hatred had highlighted my capacity for love. As I prepared for my afternoon meetings, I reflected on the unexpected gratitude I felt, not for the pain Diego and Kira had caused, but for the lessons learned and the strength discovered. Every challenge had prepared me for the next victory. Every setback had set up a greater comeback. My assistant knocked, reminding me about the team meeting where I'd be announcing our department's expansion. More jobs created, more opportunities for growth, more chances to mentor others through their own challenges. The ripple effects of choosing resilience over revenge continued spreading positively. I stood up, straightened my jacket, and headed to the conference room with confidence. Behind me was a past I'd overcome. Ahead was a future I was actively building. And in this moment, I was exactly where I belonged. Successful not in spite of the challenges, but because of how I'd chosen to face them. The meeting went well, the team excited about new possibilities. As I outlined our strategic vision, I saw in their faces the same ambition and hope I'd felt rebuilding my own career. Several stayed after to discuss their professional goals, seeking guidance on navigating their own challenges. I shared what wisdom I could, remembering my own mentors who'd believed in me when my world was falling apart. Success meant lifting others as you climbed, creating opportunities from obstacles, choosing growth over grudges. These were the lessons worth passing on. The day ended with a text from Farah asking if I could help with her presentation on inspiring women. She wanted to write about me, her mom who'd overcome hard things to achieve her dreams. I smiled through tears, honored by her choice and humbled by her perspective. That evening, as our family gathered for dinner, I looked around the table at the life we'd built. Mark was helping the baby with her spoon while Farah set the table, chattering about her day. This was my boardroom, my conference hall, my stage. These were my most important stakeholders. The journey from betrayal to triumph had been long and often difficult, but every step had led here, to this table, with these people, living this life. Diego's deception had freed me to find real love. Kira's attacks had strengthened my professional resolve. Their worst intentions had led to my best outcomes. As Farah said grace before our meal, thanking God for our family and asking for continued blessings, I added my own silent gratitude for second chances and new beginnings, for love that heals and children who choose you, for careers that flourish when you refuse to give up. The next morning brought a flurry of activity. Alexandra scheduled an emergency meeting with the entire leadership team. Apparently, Kira's crowdfunding campaign had caught the attention of a local news blog that specialized in exposing online scams. They'd done their homework, uncovering the Facebook posts about her pregnancy scheme and interviewing Diego's former co-workers who'd witnessed his behavior. I watched the article go viral in real time. Comments poured in from people who donated to Kira's campaign, demanding refunds. The crowdfunding platform froze her account pending investigation. By noon, her carefully crafted victim narrative had completely collapsed. collapsed. Mark called during my lunch break. Farah's school was having a mother-daughter tea party next week, and she desperately wanted me to attend. The timing felt significant. Our first public appearance as a family unit at her school. I immediately cleared my calendar, knowing this mattered more than any meeting. That afternoon, Nicholas stopped by my new office with updates from the old department. Kira's friend in accounting had been caught using company resources to help with the harassment campaign. She'd been sending those anonymous emails from her work computer during business hours. HR was conducting a full investigation, and termination seemed likely. I focused on my upcoming board presentation, refusing to let their continued implosion distract me. My team had exceeded quarterly projections by 30%, and I wanted to showcase their achievements properly. The vandalism repair bills could wait. My career momentum couldn't. Wednesday arrived with more developments. Diego's public defender had reached out to my lawyer, desperate for a plea deal. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and his mother had stopped funding his legal defense after learning about the vandalism. He was willing to admit guilt on all charges in exchange for minimal jail time. My lawyer advised accepting the deal. A trial would be lengthy and force me to relive everything publicly. With a guilty plea, I'd get permanent protection through the restraining order and could finally close this chapter. I agreed, ready to move forward without looking back. The mother-daughter tea party at Farah's school was everything I'd hoped for. She introduced me proudly to her friends and teachers, no hesitation or qualifiers. We wore matching flower crowns she'd insisted on making, and she held my hand throughout the event. When another parent asked how long I'd been Farah's mom, she answered simply, forever. That weekend, we started moving my things into Mark's house. The apartment had served its purpose as a safe haven, but we were ready to truly blend our lives. Farah had cleared space in her room for some of my books, insisting I needed a reading corner there too. These small gestures meant everything. Maya helped with the move, alternating between teasing me about domestic lists and getting emotional about how far I'd come. She'd been my rock through the worst of it, and now she got to witness the best. When she found the printed screenshots of Kira's scheme in a box, we ceremonially shredded them together. That evidence had served its purpose. Monday's board presentation exceeded all expectations. The executives were impressed not just with the numbers, but with how I'd built team cohesion despite the challenges. They approved my proposal for department expansion, including 3 new hires. Building something positive from the chaos felt like the ultimate victory. I was leaving the boardroom when reception called. There was a delivery for me, no return address. Security had screened it, just an envelope. Inside, I found a handwritten letter from Diego. Not an apology exactly, more an acknowledgement of what he'd lost. He was entering a rehabilitation program as part of his plea deal, and wanted me to know he finally understood the damage he'd caused. I read it once, then filed it away. His journey to redemption wasn't my concern anymore. My focus was on Farah's upcoming school play, where she'd proudly listed me as her mother on the program, on team meetings and client presentations, on building a life that no one could tear down again. The next few weeks flew by in a blur of normalcy that felt extraordinary. Morning routines with Farah, evening dinners as a family, weekend trips to the farmer's market where Diego used to stalk us, but now we shopped in peace. Each ordinary moment was a small victory over those who'd tried to destroy this. Kira's situation continued deteriorating. The crowdfunding platform had not only frozen her account, but was pursuing fraud charges. Her ex had been granted full custody after she missed multiple supervised visits. She'd been evicted from her apartment and had moved back with her parents out of state. The woman who'd tried to destroy my career had lost everything through her own actions. I found out through Nicholas that she'd tried applying to several companies in our industry, but word had spread about her behavior. The same network she'd tried to poison against me had blacklisted her. Professional karma was more effective than anything I could have orchestrated. Mark and I met with a financial planner to merge our futures properly. Between my promotion and his stable income, we were building something solid for Farah and any future children. The meeting felt like another step toward permanence, creating security that no external chaos could shake. Farah's play was a triumph. She delivered her lines perfectly, but what struck me most was her bio in the program. Under parents, she'd listed Dad Mark and Mom Sarah. Seeing my name there in print, claimed by her so publicly, meant more than any professional accolade. The adoption paperwork was moving through the system faster than expected. Mark's lawyer said Farah's clear preference and our stable home environment made it straightforward. We'd have a court date within months. Legal recognition of what our hearts already knew. Work continued to flourish. My expanded team was hitting every target, and Alexandra had started including me in senior leadership strategy sessions. The company was considering creating a new division, and my name was being floated to head it. From forced personal leave to potential division head in less than a year. I ran into Kira's former friend from accounting at a coffee shop near the office. She'd been terminated after the investigation, and the encounter was awkward. She started to say something, maybe an apology or excuse, but I simply walked past. Some bridges weren't worth rebuilding. The divorce from my apartment lease was finalized just as spring arrived. Farah had helped me pack the last boxes, chattering about how nice it would be to have me home all the time. Home. Such a simple word that had taken such a complex journey to achieve. Mark surprised me one evening with news that he'd been offered a promotion too. His company wanted him to lead a new regional team. The position came with a substantial raise and better benefits. We celebrated quietly after Farah went to bed, marveling at how different life looked now compared to a year ago. The security system at the house caught someone on camera late one night. Not Diego or Kira, just a door-to-door salesperson. But we reviewed the footage together anyway. The hypervigilance was fading slowly, replaced by normal caution. Progress came in small steps. My presentation at the industry conference was scheduled for the following month. This time, I'd be sharing strategies for building resilient teams through crisis. The irony wasn't lost on me that my worst professional year had become the foundation for my expertise. Farah started calling me Mom exclusively. No more switching between my name and the title. It happened gradually, naturally, until one day I realized she hadn't used my actual name in weeks. Mark noticed too, squeezing my hand when she called out, "Mom, where's my library book?" from upstairs. The plea deal was finalized on a Tuesday. Diego received 6 months in jail, 2 years probation, and mandatory counseling. The restraining order became permanent. His mother sent one last letter through his lawyer, not apologizing, but acknowledging she'd been wrong about me. I filed it with his letter, closing that chapter completely. Work announced the new division at the quarterly all-hands meeting. I'd been selected to lead it, with full autonomy to build the team and set strategic direction. The same company that had almost lost me to harassment now trusted me with a multi-million-dollar initiative. Alexandra joked that she was losing her best manager but gaining a peer. The adoption hearing was set for next month. Farah had already picked out her outfit and practiced what she wanted to tell the judge. Mark and I had explained the process, but she remained focused on one detail. After this, no one could say I wasn't her real mom anymore. I spent a weekend updating my LinkedIn profile with a new position, finally feeling safe to be visible professionally again. Within hours, congratulations poured in from colleagues and connections. Several people mentioned they'd followed my journey and were inspired by my resilience. The house felt more like home every day. My books mixed with theirs on the shelves. My photos joined the family gallery on the walls. Farah's drawings now included 4 figures instead of 3. A baby sister she insisted was coming someday. Mark and I exchanged glances whenever she mentioned it, both thinking maybe someday soon. My team for the new division was coming together beautifully. I'd poached some top talent from competitors and promoted rising stars internally. Building something from scratch felt like the culmination of everything I'd learned through the chaos. Every challenge had prepared me for this opportunity. The conference presentation was my professional redemption. Standing on that stage, sharing how to build teams that could weather any storm, I thought about my own journey. The audience was engaged, asking questions about practical applications. Several CEOs approached afterward about consulting opportunities. On the flight home, I drafted my first blog post about professional resilience. Not naming names or rehashing drama, just sharing strategies that had worked. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Messages from professionals facing their own workplace crises, thanking me for showing it was possible to come out stronger. Farah met me at the airport with a handmade sign that said, "Welcome home, Mom," in glittery letters. Mark stood behind her, holding flowers and grinning. This was my success story, not the accolades or promotions, but coming home to people who loved me completely. The adoption was finalized on a Thursday morning. Farah wore her special dress and told the judge solemnly that I'd been her mom since the first time I braided her hair. The judge smiled and made it official. We celebrated with ice cream for breakfast and took approximately 1,000 photos. That night, as I tucked Farah into bed for the first time as her legal mother, she whispered, "Now the mean people can never take you away, right?" I promised her that nothing and no one would separate us again. She fell asleep holding my hand, finally secure in what we'd all fought to protect. Mark found me later on the porch, processing the magnitude of the day. We sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, Diego was serving his sentence, and Kira was rebuilding her life far from us. But here, in this moment, we had everything that mattered.